Let everybody get in.
Traveled to Dnipro. Traveled to I'm trying to get the quick Q&A up here so
Hi,
we can
Laura.
see our friends. There we go. Should be able to see everybody. And 25 people in here already. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah. So we
Well,
went down for the last week. We went down to Dnipro, Mykolaiv, back, and then up to Sumy, and almost got killed in a car wreck, T-boned. But God hates me and my enemy, so I'm still alive. And we saw drone teams doing intercepts. We saw them doing their training. We talked to American who's in Sumy, a Black American in Sumy named Snowball, who we will publish in an interview directly for you guys. So all of you
can you hear that?
paid subscribers to Shaun and me, this is how we could do this. So it's for us, and then he will also be in the documentary we were filming for the last several weeks, and really for the last year, Art of Drone Warfare. I will say in Sumy, I've been in Chernihiv last year, but being in Sumy, seeing the Milky Way at the same time as having the sounds of drones flying around above you, FPV fan drones, if you will, and artillery. We're only 20 miles from the Russian border. It's a very loud night, and it's that way for Ukrainians in that area all the time in Sumy. The constant shelling, the constant air raids 4 or 5 times, in the afternoon, throughout the night.
Like now? I
Yeah.
don't know whether you can hear it. Did you hear it?
No, but yeah, exactly. You guys go
Yeah,
through a
we're
lot.
right
I
quite
actually have
close. Yeah.
Dnipro on my phone, so I know that you guys get a lot. But
Oh, tell me, let me know. Just keep an eye, will you? Because I can't see it while I'm talking to you guys.
Raj. Actually, hold on. Let's see. I should talk
I'm
about the
outside, and I'm in
then while I was
location, and
away,
anything could go wrong.
exactly, exactly. And you know that feeling
We're
of things
live.
being hit at home when you're abroad, man. That starts really messing with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys have some activity down south. Otherwise the country is kind of quiet, thankfully. But yeah, we definitely have some activity around you guys. So what have you been doing this week before we get into some of the headlines? What's up?
Since getting back from Portugal, really, I've been.
Yeah, that's right.
Literally, someone's just started angle grinding next to me. This is not going well. I got an alarm going. It's just been quiet for the last 6 hours, and as soon as I
Glad it's that, not a whistling of a missile.
Someone angle grinding now. It's pissing me off. Since I got back from Portugal, I've literally just been catching up with stuff here. We had a lovely day yesterday, actually. We got 3 kittens looking for a home. So Larissa was doing some photographs of these kittens, which was they're so cute. There's just too much cuteness going on at the moment. So I'm just out mowing the lawn at the moment, trying to get the grass down because we've been away for a couple of weeks. So yeah, it's been it's just sort of will you shut up? Seriously, never. You can't write this stuff, can you? So I might have to go to the office in a minute, but yeah, no, it's been lovely. The weather's good and the blue skies are blue. Huh?
We can hear you fine.
Oh, that's good. It should cut out a lot of the side noise, to be fair. So
yeah,
but yeah, it's been good, really good. So I can't really grumble. Been a bit of an interesting week though, which has been a bit of a bit off-putting, if you know what I mean. It's been a bit 50-50. I said I wrote an article today saying that because I saw a meme. I said it's like Biff Tanner's just found the sports almanac from Back to the Future. It's that sort of absolute just surreal timeline we're on at the moment. It's bizarre. If you'd have said to me that quite a way back that we would have had 2 conservative MAGA influence, one in Russia and one in Ukraine in the same, within inside a month, I would have probably thought you was balmy. But here we are. now we've got.
Yeah, and the interesting part that it was one that made the news in the big way, but the little pygmy with the bald-headed stocking cap version of it was also interesting to have it happen because, you know, it starts becoming a pattern that you want to say, now wait a minute, that can't line that fast. Something up. Or as many people said,
Yeah,
what, did the Kremlin checks run out? I don't know
yeah,
how many
yeah.
variations I heard of did the Kremlin checks run out. But so who came to Ukraine that stood out this week? Was it the Latvian Prime Minister? Was the Japanese foreign delegation? Who was it that
Of course,
arrived that
no.
was you've
Of
arrived at a
course,
rather
no.
fucked up time. Our McDonald's is
It's like
burning.
a fucking Miss Loomer, who's
What?
literally a 4-year propaganda queen who called us Nazis, who called us Nazi apologists,
No, wait a
called
minute,
Zelensky a
wait a minute.
Nazi
We have
apologist.
an issue here, Sean. We have an issue here. So I've been really toiling. You know, I put a lot of time into these articles, right? Obsessively, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
And I did one sort of flippantly based on the fact I grew up reading lawsuit stuff, so I kind of like to read court papers of this influencer Laura Loomer. You may have heard of her. And the court slapped her down, reading back her own tweets to herself. And I just thought it was funny, so I wrote a funny thing. And essentially paid 20% of this year's income, which is still not workable in American cents, but it helps pay the studio, and brought in new subscribers. And I said, man, how strange that the thing I care the least about it helps more than the thing I care the most about that gets only so much traffic. This is just a strange thing. And then someone says, well, you write about these different things. Yeah, but the number one post that I've got is this one about Laura Loomer.
Laura Loomer.
I,
Yeah, mine was this year as well so
I
far.
guess who shows up in Kyiv
Laura
on our
Loomer.
side?
Who'd have thought it, eh? 4 years of fighting that lady. I'm going to be very careful considering she's meant to be on our side now. I find it
Exactly
really
right.
hard that, do you know, me and you talked, I made some life-changing changes in my life, if you, bad English there, but I've made some life-changing decisions, and generally there's a catalyst behind those decisions that's driven me to change my opinion quite seriously at a 180, you know, at quite breakneck speed. Laura
Right.
Loomer's answer: why did you change your opinion? Because I was in a media bubble. You know, this is 4 years, a woman who advertises on her social media as, an investigative journalist. I was like, at what point did you literally didn't do any investigating? I mean, the one that stands out to me is Boneface, the guy from Mariupol, because I was there and we went to
Yeah,
work on it,
Kyle
me and Aidan,
McClellan.
and went to fight her on this.
Yeah,
McClellan, yeah. So here's, is it McClellan? No, I can't really, but this
McClellan.
guy
I know
produced
this because from a
fake
Scottish
IDs.
side, you have to understand we have a bit of a beef with the McClellans.
McClellan.
Yeah, they took our sheep.
It was.
Not all of our sheep, just the one we like the most. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
She called us all Nazis. He said he'd been to Mariupol and was extracted out in the helicopters that came in, which I was there and he wasn't. I actually spoke to the loadmaster at the time, who told me I'd remember a face with tattoos all over it. And that's as
Yeah,
bad as it
exactly.
got. And then she was like, I reiterated it later that I've uncovered this as of, association. And I find
Right.
it extremely hard that there's been no pushback to, she just walked in straight into the president's office and sat down and interviewed the president of Ukraine, which formerly she's called a Nazi. I mean, it's just bizarre. And I've had some, I wouldn't say hate, but some criticism from my view of that. And I was in Mariupol and I've been here. So people are like, you should give her a chance. And I'm like, well, I'm not being funny, but you have to work at that. That comes with time. She's had 4 years
Amen.
of calling
Yeah, I
them
don't
as
give out
Nazis,
medals when you go. Yeah, I don't give out medals when you go from sub-zero level karma to 0. At that point, you're just at least on par. I give out medals when you start excelling past the normal rate and doing things most people wouldn't do. And actually, I try to model my decisions on subconsciously, even on people who really naturally are always pushing through the noise, like especially in war, pushing through the noise and the paralysis of the moment. So when someone sort of just finally does the basic right thing, I mean, molodets, but like there's so much more to do. So I like the hashtag Laura Loomer drone campaign type of response from a lot of Ukrainians who said, "Put your money where your mouth is, and let's build some air defense. We'll do it in your name, even."
Yeah.
And that's the response, flipping the script.
Yeah, and
Good
you even
ideas.
got I I don't know whether Tim Paul's being sarcastic or whatever, but even he's like throwing
No,
out
he wasn't.
but I think
Yeah,
that's more sarcasm or something like that, I think.
yeah.
But generally, I mean, this is another guy who said, we should apologize to Russia. And suddenly, he's on the same team as Laura Loomer, or the MAGA lot. And, what is going on? What's happened? Well, there's lots of debate. I've got several opinions, I think, mainly because I think Ukraine, like you said, has worked itself into a position where it can seriously, pardon my French, fuck with Trump's ratings.
That's right.
And he's got the midterms coming up in November. And Americans, you could speak probably more than me. Quite a few Americans said, no, it's not even registering here, which they would if they didn't want us to think that it was the midterms.
I mean,
with
we'll
a
say
foot
this
in
about
each
you.
camp he's trying to influence.
I'll say this about British politics with American politics. At least we know the coherent shit show we have in front of us. Maybe not well, but we have no idea who you have in charge.
I don't even know Andy Burnham, mate, so don't even go there with me. I literally, somebody, I went, who? Who's that?
How's
like
the next
so many people. So many people writing into me going, Andy Burnham's this guy from Manchester, King of the North. And I was so getting confused with Games of Thrones. They know it's this Game of Thrones. They know.
Well, one thing
I had no idea.
One thing about Laura Loomer's return is she didn't take long to insult our IDAR battalion. We have the Crimean Tatar community that are Muslim. We have a range of people, but what she did later is qualify it. Well, I don't mean the fact that it's great that there are no Muslims there, but at least they're all subdued and not being all Muslim-y in front of me, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And it's
I'm going to apologize, but only to the white and non-Muslim Ukrainians.
Right. And I'll be honest,
she didn't say that actually, but
I haven't lived. Well, I haven't lived in Europe to understand how people in Europe are experiencing something. I'm going to be just flat out. I can theorize it from a distance, but I'm using this for an example because we're going to bring it back to Ukraine. But I know how it is here. Now, because I want the same standard applied to me and you, Shaun, is I need to remember, well, I don't live in Germany and I don't live in Brussels. So I actually don't know if something is being overly.
Perhaps if I live in Germany, I won't insult the Turkish, Well,
no,
for example.
I'm saying it's like, since I don't live there, I'm going to play benefit of the doubt that I don't know their situation. But let me bring it to here why I'm emphasizing this. We know that with the change in the military leadership, we keep getting told in Ukraine what to think of what happens in front of us. We get told from internet people who've never experienced the war, maybe once crossed the border at most in some cases, what to think of Fedorov or Syrskyi or Laura Loomer. And you just said one of them, which is perfect. You, Shaun, should give the benefit of the doubt because someone who's never lived here thinks you're doing it wrong. Or, I know, actually, I'm going to give away the cards. I just remembered. I'm going to give away the cards. Maybe it's someone who lives here because I just remembered who it was and said something. And that person thinks that you're naive, Shaun, that you poor fellow are too naive to understand how dealing with conservatives really looks. That's that
most
angle
of that,
on this one. Go for it.
It's fair to say most of that comes from the outside. It's fair to say because everyone in it knows what's going on. But most of that comes from the outside. People are willing to forgive 4 years of Laura Loomer hate because it's not them with the loss. They can sit there and go, you need to give her a chance. You need to do this. Right. We forgive you, Laura Loomer, because it's so easy to do online and they don't really understand the full picture. So they're literally, she's got in without any pushback, pretty much very limited pushback.
For lines like, how can anyone who well, yeah, but for lines like, how can anyone who loves America be proud to be an American at this time? And our government is funding Nazi death squads in Ukraine. That's what she said. Zelensky is shaking hands with Islamic terrorists. Ukraine is a country full of Nazi apologists, and now it's clearly a country led by a jihadi apologist. Giuliani is a cold-blooded killer. It goes on. Oh, the CIA and Biden staged a coup against Putin, or tried to. It goes, there's a whole list. I flagged for my new article coming on the way. A lot of garbage. I mean, there's a lot.
She
It
helped
wasn't
form the
casual.
narrative. She helped form the narrative of the war. I mean, it's like, and people go, yeah, she's okay now. It's okay. She's fine. She's great. She's on our
Yeah,
side. And you go,
yeah.
hold on a minute. Well, I'm willing to accept people change, but they need a bit of, time to do that. Not photo shoots and then maybe a little
Yeah.
apology, but not to the Muslims. It's good to see there's no Muslims in Ukraine, which one of the richest men in Ukraine.
And the fact that she said, Zelensky is a Nazi Jew. He is a fake Jewish actual Nazi. He has a Florida mansion, $300 billion. Zelensky is a Nazi with Ukrainians have always hated the Jews. On and on and on and on and on. Now, again, let me tell you, some people who are watching, why we have a little bit of fun with this because it's fucking crazy. But the reason why I also talked about what people on the internet need to be very careful about is there are people on the internet who are headline readers, and that's perfectly great. But some headline readers become very opinionated from a distance, and they'll say things like, "Well, you could no." I like this phrase. No one can know why that decision was made. Meaning, in the outside, we have to wait for the delegations, the boyars, to make the decisions. In this case, I can tell you that we do know that the way this arrangement happened of Laura Loomer coming in was the chief rabbi, as he's called. I've been told by people there really actually is no chief rabbi here, but it's a title of Moshe Osman, who is very well known in the public Western sphere, and he is a friend of Michael Flynn. He is very into the hyper right conservative circles. He encouraged Mark Burns to come here from to Bucha last year. I was just basically within the shadow of them because I was filming in Bucha that day. And Osman asked if I wanted to go with him for the ride. I have ethics, so I won't have anything to do with Trump people like that at that orbit. Maybe a mistake, but the reason why is because in that case, the town of Bucha is who I had my invite from. The town of Bucha comes first, no matter what else. But I know he went to Borodyanka, he went to Mykolaiv, he saw the mass graves there. He saw the same stuff Laura Loomer saw. He got basically the same tour that Laura Loomer got. It's an influence tour, and it's a realistic influence tour. They get to see the shit I filmed, these guys filmed, and then they walk away with a lasting impression. So Osman has a lot to do with that. Now, last factor is I'm going to bring on Steve Hassan, cult expert, on because there's an additional flavor for another time of sort of a questionable group called Elantra that is creepy. And I'm gonna leave it at that because until Steve Hassan can come explain why, there's a layer to that circle. Now, yes, we want as much of that influential crowd like Stephen Moore, who's a Republican strategist living here, to reach those people and get those people to come over and say, this is a place where people were living at. Holy hell, like 24 flights of building gone, 15 flights of building, two columns gone. Let them stand in front of that. Let them stand in front of all that stuff for a bit. And then maybe they go home and stop talking shit.
Yeah.
There's that. There's my TED Talk.
It sounds like everything I hated Candice going. She doesn't even speak the language, yet she's telling everybody Moscow's fantastic. Now you've got Laura Loomer doing exactly the same thing, but worse because she spent 4 years slagging us off. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty hard to stomach. I do prefer influencers writing about us, not, in a good light, rather than sort of the Kremlin perspective. But even Laura Loomer's posting stuff now that's just falling straight into the Russian narrative because she's dumb as a brick. She doesn't understand the situation here, So when she says things like, there's no Muslims in Ukraine, first of all, that's a fucking lie. Secondly, the Russians pick up on it. That's because you got all the Nazis there.
The team I was just with.
She's like fueling this shit now. People are still going,
I was just with
she's
in
okay.
Kyiv.
She's okay.
Yeah, the guy, our contact in between is a Ukrainian Muslim. He's originally a just Ukrainian Orthodox Ukrainian, but he converted to Islam years ago. And to say he's not serving his country or you don't see him, it's like, well, that's because you don't really know what a Muslim looks like.
Yeah,
It's like they don't
she's
walk
just
them like Muslim, you know?
written off the indigenous Crimeans. She's just written them off with one tweet. It's
Yeah.
like,
The irony of
you've
it is
just
how many people,
pissed
yeah.
off the Chechens. I've just seen on X.
Yeah,
You've
exactly. The
really
Chechens
pissed
are like,
them off.
hey, you know what we did? You know what we do? We defend this country. Thank you very much. Sheikh, the
She's
Sheikh
like,
Mansour, for those who don't know, that's like the Sheikh Mansour and the Idar Battalion. We have very specific groups. I know them. Thanks to all of you subscribers, we may get there, but I have been sort of tangentially working on towards documenting what they've been doing here because I know some of the type of PR people around those who definitely want support because they, with all these groups, there are certain needs, some of which are PR related to get the news out that they actually exist, that they are also resisting the Kremlin, that they are also representative of the Chechen people, or as we say, Ishkarian people, Ishkaria. Um, having her also meet, I want to pivot with this about her, because this is important. She said she met with POW representative families of some sort, and that's good. Regardless of how that took place, I haven't figured out who did what. I did get requests from the same people who met with Mark Burns. Could that be possible? So I haven't figured out which group put that together, but hopefully she'll say something. She talked about the scars, the tattoos of swastikas and shit that were carved in their bodies, the scars. So that's good for her to say that.
Yeah, that is good. I mean, it is. I don't get me wrong. I'm all for it. I just find it very hard to stomach, and I think you're going to find a lot of people in Ukraine in that same position. They know. I think they know and they understand that people need to to change minds and buy into Ukraine. However,
Right,
there's nothing to stop her after the midterms just reverting back to where she came from. And that's, I think, people should be really, really skeptical of her about that.
right,
She may do that. It could take one thing that Trump says, I'm unhappy on the sixpence, and suddenly after the midterms where everybody's bought into it, he does okay, and she's back to hating Ukraine. He's back to hating Ukraine, and we're back to square one. So, you've got to be honest. What has he done for us? He hasn't done very much at all. He's thrown in some sanctions finally, but he's allowed billions to float to Russia while he's having problems in Iran in what's turning out to be a real problem for Trump, and that's having a problem, and his rating at home deteriorating. So
right.
it makes sense to think that Loomer's come over just to try and get some of those, the 70% of Americans that are in favor of Ukraine aid on Trump's side before the midterms, because it sounds like you probably know more about it than me. It sounds like he's down to 27%, and his ratings are plummeting, and he's going to struggle through the midterms, which will make him a president that's redundant for 2 years.
Well, there's an additional factor in this that I'm thinking is that what is it they want when they come here? And here's my first angle. And I have no problem telling the world when I have a battle with certain people. Mark Burns, the pastor who for Trump guy, whatever, he met with the POW families, and you know how much I work on this case. I literally, when I saw that photo with the wives, I knew 5 of them, 4 of them by name, meaning we're actually on text and Facebook and stuff. One of the other ones I see her a lot, and the other one's in the background. So I know them, and I said, be very careful with this guy. Don't expect much. Well, we had to meet with him because no, Mama, please, please, you never have to explain to me. I know why you did that. I'm talking about why he did that. What is he going to do with it? We'll see. Die bullshit, God willing. So, I made a comment the other day when Laura Loomer popped off. I said, well, will it wind up being like Mark Burns where you come up, get the photo op, and then you do nothing? And Mark Burns clapped back at me. I'm trying to use these phrases of the young people like clapped back anyway, clapped back at me and said, oh, you don't know.
Down with
Oh,
the
first of all,
kids.
you fool. You don't know what happened after that meeting. So first off, calling me a fool after working for 4 years, 1,600 days of war, with Ukrainians day after day, no matter what, never gripping, never taking anything out of the pocket, none of that. Working with these families that he talked to, and then he dared say, "You don't know what happened after that." Wrong. I know the people you met. I literally asked the moms at that table and the head of the committees that do that work. They met with you. They were thankful to have met with you. They think you mentioned about it after you left, and then they heard nothing else, just like I said. So step back because I can call them. And I thoroughly authorize Mark Burns or anyone else to double check with them. Do you guys know Chris Sampson? Is he telling the truth? Because the answer will be remarkably telling for why Mark Burns sat down.
How many pastors has Trump got? I've seen like 3 or 4.
Well, yeah, this is also an association.
There's that mad woman running around. She calls herself a pastor to Trump too.
Yeah. Paula White. So I did a whole thing on her doing the tongues and the angels from Africa are hearing, and the angels from Africa are hearing, and she does her Galatia thing.
Exercise the demons.
Yeah. Oh my God! Don't get me started on that stuff.
Yeah.
But he is a warning shot, in my opinion, for what she may or may not do. That you come here to remediate your soul, to get it off your soul, but then what do you do with that? Do you make up for it? Do you invest? Do you have the Laura Loomer drone interceptor program developed? That's a good idea, by the way.
That's a really good idea.
She called the Loomer.
I'm not sure it's
I would love
to
see a missile that hits the Kremlin called the Loomer instead of just the Flamingo. That's fine.
Yeah. The new murder, the Flamingo Loomer. The Looming Flamingo. Yeah, there we go. You got a tribute to it. She could pay the money for that.
What about Wildberries, bro? Do you like Wildberries?
Man, that's kicking off. That's like, yeah, I do when they're on fire. Nova Poshta. I mean, they've hit the Nova Poshta in Dnipro. They've hit the Epicentr in Kyiv today. They've hit the Epicentr in Kramatorsk.
Oh, did they hit the one in Kyiv today? Oh,
yeah, they did. Yeah, quite a big one. So, Wildberries is now going up. It's game on. It's war on. It's now Epicentr versus, Wildberries. It's dangerous because I think, many people use those. But, Russia's been hitting them through days. So, it's like customers there. I'm not sure Ukraine has done the same.
Yeah.
Pardon?
I'm at Epicentr all the time. My boom mic is from there. My light stands are from there. My the back wall grid that we have, them steel items are from there. The cleaning floor stuff.
But this is having it's having a massive impact on the Russians. I mean, they don't give a
Wildberries,
shit about, wiping out 25,000 people in Mariupol, but you strangle their internet and you take away their Amazon or their equivalent to Amazon, they're really kicking up. They're not happy bunnies. And now they're looking at mobilization, which we'll come on to in a minute, which is like, that's going to happen. I mean, this is going to change the next 2-3 years. I mean, it's going to really show, Russia's intention, and everything looks like it's geared up for mobilization. So, you've got Russia's now looking to try and bolt the country. I mean, there's record searches for passport costs in Russia now as fighting age males trying to evacuate the country. But, Putin's stopped, or really sort of got the door ajar. He stopped them from leaving. So, yeah, I mean, it's, I think 700 to 1 million Russians escaped in 2022 because they were a bit ill prepared for the mobilization. He ain't going to make that same mistake again. He's going to keep them all in, pen them all in, and then sign them all up, probably 20 million of them after the elections in September. What do you think?
Right. Well, I'm noticing that he's moving the fires from the front to the logistical lines. That the defense of those positions he would need to hold the front are being not fully atomized or anything at that level, but he's having to mobilize the force he would use for a further incursion into Ukraine to protect his back line. And that is exactly like the discussion we've been having the last few weeks about cutting off that logistical line to Crimea. They're reinforcing in that back line that much means where are you going to keep drawing your human power? You're obviously not drawing it from the population. You're drawing it from your existing forces. Not good.
No, they're even used, I think, more by July 25th, then they're actually producing ballistics. So they're actually, not only are they not, they're not recruiting enough people to cover the casualties, they're actually burning through stocks quicker than they can build them. So now Russia's looking to expand on that and looking for launchers. So none of this is sustainable by Russia. So it's a really interesting time, because I think after 4 years, we've got to the point where Russia's really struggling to keep this war going. How's he going to do it? It's just going to keep going. It's just going to mobilize. He has to. He's just going to put more meat waves in. They're not going to amount to very much. I mean, it's like, it's not going to change the war. So where Russia goes, other than just destroy and destroy its own population, which Putin seems intent on doing, this is crunch time. I think by the end of this year, we'll start to know where this war's going, whether we're halfway through. I can't see peace this year. Whether he mobilizes, whether he doesn't, it's a real interesting time. And this, to go back to this influencer war, this is just another front that's seriously opened up now, where we've got the political front, the economic front, we've now got the influencer war, and this is all taking precedence over the actual battlefield situation, with most of that taking the press and media, which is weird as hell. So it's a really, I think the next 6 months are going to be very make or break. And I think it's going to be either one or the other. And I'm kind of hoping that we do get the licenses for, Loomer maybe here. If I was Zelensky, I'd say, you want my endorsement? Give us the licenses to build within this, and this, and this, and I'll endorse the shit out of Loomer, if I was Zelensky. Hopefully, that's where we're at. We're now starting to see a bit of a change, but I'm not putting any hopes on Trump. I think he was shit on us given half a chance. I don't think he's going to change his attitude to Russia. I think he's still going to be soft on Russia. And I still think deep down he hates Ukraine. You can't take away what J.D. Vance and all the people around him have said about Ukraine. So it's a real interesting time. Has Zelensky got Ukraine into a position where he can now call the shots over the mighty USA? Interesting thought. Did I say something
cutting
wrong?
That down by half? No, it was like saying I'm a rotisserie suddenly. It's good to have good sun, but I'm in a rotisserie.
Fedorov. Let me tell you what's going on with Fedorov quick, because somebody's going to answer this question, because this is I might be going up to Kyiv this week. The protests have reignited because Fedorov has not been reinstated. It's going to be an interesting time, so I want to report on that next week. The situation is that I think if he holds out, he could end up back in the job. Why you would want to take another job that you can't have enforced.
Well, one demand was met. We replaced. Yeah, well, one demand was met because Sersky is out and Rapati is in.
And he's friends with Fedorov. So
yeah,
they get on.
They represent a younger generation of military leadership.
They do. Ones that have fought Russians, not gone through the Soviet doctrine, which is very wanted here. It's overdue. I've done pieces on this, having served with the military since 2018. It's a friggin' nightmare with the Soviet doctrine and middle management. Hopefully these changes would be good, and Fedorov would be amazing guy to have as in the Ministry of Defense, because that job, just the Ministry of Defense job, is like running a multinational now. He's the guy that will front getting those Patriot defense contracts to build defense missiles in Ukraine. I can't see a military man doing that. I can't see anybody else doing that. For me, Fedorov is that guy that could amalgamate military with defense and that commercial aspect of it. He's the best out of the box thinker on the planet probably at the moment. When it comes to war, we've just got rid of it. So I think deep down, I think if he holds out, I think the the people will get what they want. They wanted two things. They wanted Sersky out. I've got not a bad thing to say about Sersky. I won't say that. He's got one of the hardest jobs in the world, and he came in at such a hard time.
We're alive, and people like
we're alive and kicking.
So I'm not taking away from the guys who did the battle.
He brought in unmanned services. He did a lot of good stuff. So he's made some bad decisions, but he's gone. I'm not going to jump on over that. However, the guy coming in is a really good, really respected soldier of his troops. So Doropati is, from Mariupol, and got his name from Mariupol. He's not from Mariupol. He got his name fighting the Russians in Mariupol, and he's one of the new school that his career has been built around fighting Russia, which is exactly what we want.
Yeah, and one of the things that we said last week when I was in your town, and you were elsewhere, right? You were coming back from
I was Portugal.
Portugal. Was that it represents the voice of the incoming generation of adults who say we have something to say. And this is why I really pushed back on several Western supporters who need to basically STFU about what they think is happening on the streets here. We know who was on the streets. I literally went to the protest in Dnipro, into Mykolaiv. I know the guys in Kharkiv. I know the people who covered here in person. So my ground game is covered, and it's in person. And the reason why I say is that we went live here on Substack with this audience, and they know, this audience knows we were there. And we could hear the young people say, essentially, we want our future. This is important to us. This is innovation that saves lives. And we have this, protest entirely for our Minister of Defense. And I pointed out that I can't imagine anyone except a handful of MAGA people, and I doubt they would show face, going out and protesting in favor of Pete Hegseth.
No. That's just even funny, just even thinking about.
Like the Pete Hegseth fan club does not exist.
Hegseth. Yeah, no, I can see that.
Got my hair back. Got some testosterone tests coming your way.
It's just like the South Park when they do that with the selfie stick and they're doing PT and stuff. It's just hilarious. Yeah, I mean, it's an absolute surreal world we're living in at the moment. I mean, it's just bizarre where everything's going. It's just crazy. Can you still see me?
I see you fine.
It's getting a bit dark.
That's a bit bad.
That's good. Dzień dobry.
No, so I want to talk about something else that happened here, and a little bit about it, because someone lost an argument with me. They're just too stupid to know they lost the argument, so they kept talking. And my new rule will be I'm just going to leave them there to talk. And one of them was that people who work in building weapons here need to STFU. Unless they are run through cycles and circles of OSINT related rejection. So, for instance, when we do our interviews, they pull up their gaiters across their face, or it is a nameable figure like Dnipro, right? We have influencers who have Westerns who have been very quick to run their mouths about building weapons, and I made the claim every person who does that creates a target on the building and location they live. This week, yesterday, actually, to be precise, July 25th, there was a arms expo here to talk about interceptors, if I understand correctly, in the Bucha area, and 10 people were killed and over 100, around 100 people were seriously injured. An investigation that's at hand is looking to see how was the announcement made. For instance, I go to these exact types of things a lot, and you literally only get the location a few hours before. You're very well vetted. I had to turn in my military accreditation. I am given a supersized thing about embargo of information. Shaun, actually, even our event, which was not about weapons with Made in Russia, about the defenders was, if you remember, I said there was an embargo till well after 350. And a lot of it had to do with not wanting people to know when and where certain figures were at certain locations. So it's not even about weapons. And this strike has now launched an investigation. And in April 20, I would say 2024, but it could be 2023. In Chernihiv, there was a similar type of expo when, essentially Russia got the announcement, hit the military academy, I think it was, and killed a lot of troops. So it's a almost criminal negligent statute level problem with this. And again, I'm reminding all supporters abroad, STFU, about weapons that you may or may not work around in places you may have been or not been, and unless you understand the clearance necessary to protect lives. What do you think?
Loose lips sink ships. And that's, we were at war. People don't realize that. They come here and they dress like, foreigners. You can see it with similar caps as this. They don't go and blend in very well. They wear their Boston Red Sox baseball tops. They go down and say, "Hey man, I'm in America," shouting all these pubs. We're at war here, especially if you're in Dnipro 2 hours from the front line. You are literally, places probably crawling with spotters and dickers and Russian agents, and you've got to be a bit careful. You do know what I mean? And
exactly.
The same if your online presence now, you've got to be exactly the same. Like, you've got to have some degree of security savvy, especially if you're involved with the military.
Tell nobody, not even her.
Not even her. They're actually.
I have a bunch of these in physical
form.
I have a collection of these because I'm a propaganda junkie. So yeah, here you go.
My mates.
Here you go, sailor.
I was telling a group of they were remain nameless, but I was doing a bit of a security brief, and I mentioned about the honey traps, and I said they're still very much a thing. It's you'll get beautiful girls come up to you, talk to you, and they'll try to. If that's never happened to you before, you might want to think that this could be a honey trap. And this one of the lads in the group just went,
"Oh yeah,
I hope I'm the traps."
Chris,
I was like, "No,
Chris, why have you been a monk?
You don't really.
Chris, why have you been a monk for 4 years in war? Because none of that becomes an issue. My mama is not a spy. Her Zeleny Borsch is perfect."
It's like, hold on, you're the most beautiful woman I've ever met. That's never happened to me before, that someone's just come and talked to me. I mean, it's very much a thing. And the Russians promote it. And I dare say probably the Ukrainians do on the other side too, so I hear. So, I mean, it is a thing. You have to be a bit careful. So, and one of the things I just put around this week was what drones are dropping in and around the cities now. Each drone can carry up to 20 sort of subunits and missions now.
I saw that.
They're dropping these things that look
not...
like mag lights. Do you remember those old mag lights? They used to be about this big thing. They similar sort of size, similar circumference.
We used to train with mag lights. We had training with mag lights.
Similar sort of size.
It's called Kuboto.
So Russians are just dropping them in to places, hopefully people pick them up. And that's
and kids.
So you gotta have some degree of training, heat track training when you come to Ukraine, especially if you're working sort of east of Kyiv. You want to have some sort of understanding of geography, explosives, the battle situation, the geolocations, geopolitics that's going on, and what's happening. I mean, if this mobilization comes, it's going to put some risks. Russian mobilization comes up. If that does go, that could potentially bring another offensive onto Sumy, Kharkiv. He could raise 15 million people if he turns this into a war. So you've got to understand that could happen by the end of the year. It could be a thing. So, you've got to incorporate that into your planning of anything. The reason I'm saying that is because I just had to do it, and put it on risk assessments and warn people about where we see this going for the next 3 months, and where it could possibly go. So I don't think this war's anywhere near finished. I've always said, we've always said, I think we're halfway through. If it keeps going the way it's going, I really don't see any political.
I've had soldiers this last 2 weeks said they think it could last another 10 years.
Yeah, I could think so.
Seriously,
yeah,
Ukrainian quality commanders saying if they were to regulate the fighting at a certain level, they could just sustain a campaign for 10 years. Meaning you're not trying to win, you're trying to avoid losing. You just turn it into a machine of killing nonstop because he lives in an ivory tower. What the fuck does it matter to him?
Industrial processed killing of Russians.
Industrial
that's what it
process
is
killing,
now.
correct? Yeah.
It's just unbelievable, and I don't think I don't. When you try and explain it to people, I don't think watching it on a phone or a laptop just doesn't do it really any justice.
Right.
You have to sort of experience and feel it, and then when you come here, you get the ballistics, and hopefully Laura Loomer's feeling that last night. She can understand a bit about it, which is good. I'm not the biggest fan of her, obviously, but I hope she's getting a very good experience, if I'm honest.
Mary Hawking asks, how effective would 15 million untrained and reluctant Russian conscripts be?
I get this all the time. I think it doesn't matter to Putin. He's going to just throw meat waves in, whether they're trained or not.
Right.
It does worry me because I think, as I said to someone, so child soldiers worry me. They carry guns. It doesn't. They only have to get lucky. You're talking about 15 million untrained. All they've got to do is push in on a position. Have we got enough to deal with that? They overrun it, flood it. Yeah, some of them are going to get killed. Are they going to keep going? It is worrying. And then you've got a talk of the North Koreans coming back with another 30,000. That could put pressure just on Sumy. I mean, you're going to need troops to hold these areas too. Whether we've got enough to deal with that 15 million, if he calls them up and goes to war, I don't know. It's just first time in my lifetime. I mean, I've done conflicts.
Yeah, I agree. I think that
10 years. I just don't know.
But I think the point I would make to Mary is that although I'm a civilian, one of the things I said about ISIS hackers when I wrote a book about their basically I was writing about the propaganda model they all had. The hackers were least of my concerns, and people said, "Well, why?" I said, "Because they weren't really effective. I mean, they had them, but." And I wrote a chapter that I'd never published with that, which was what would I do with the same resources? And this is why this question kind of falls in that category. If you have a competent enough commander or command force above, you can do a lot of what you just said, where you're basically flooding that zone. And you can do it just enough where you do damage at least, right? We always hope that they have enough other failures, for instance, like we talked earlier about the logistical back line, air defense issues, moving air defense around because they're getting hit in all over the country or they're having to loan the gear elsewhere. So things that create problems for that.
Can I just jump in there quick 2 seconds while you're on that subject?
It's all yours. It's all yours.
Most of those Russians will die before they even get to the contact line. That's the point you're making. Most of those will die in transit, in bases, in hubs, en route. Most of those, I would say 90% of those Russians will probably get killed before they even see a Ukrainian enemy trench. And that's the situation. That's not improving for the Russians. It's actually getting worse.
And that's just for my friend Bogdan, who's doing training. Not even just his brother involved yet with his drone.
And then
another words,
the argument
guys, the point I'm making is our guys are training literally on this to make sure that those penetration lines, that gray zone, is 25 miles longer into the back line.
Yeah.
So that, come on, Boris. Yeah, we got you, homie.
We got you. You got to wake up in the morning and think, look at what Dima said. Dimko said, I wake up in the morning and I think, how am I going to kill 100 Russians today? It doesn't do good for your mental well-being. How do you delete 100 Russians today? But you're arguing that, that joke you used to do about what would win, 500 ducks or versus a bull? Who would win? It's that sort of scenario you're dealing with this now. It's like, we just don't know. I'm pretty sure the Russians will have some secret weapon they're working on, probably might, bio mosquitoes or something. I don't know.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure they'll be working on the next tech and the next advance like the Ukrainians are. They just, Ukrainians have got the wind at their backs at the moment with it. But that changes. Lines fluctuate, lines move, technology changes. We're going to be, if we don't get something secured let's say by winter, then we're back to another of Russia bombing the power unit and power stations. And last winter was extremely bad. You talk to Ukrainians here at the moment, they're generally concerned about next winter. They're starting to prepare for it already in February and March of this year. So it is a worry. But yeah, I mean, we're in uncharted territories with innovations we've never seen before, on top of a World War II style scenario war that's now over 1,000 kilometers long on the front line. I mean, this is uncharted territory. Anybody that can tell you that they know what's going to happen is bullshitting. I'm here. I don't know what's going to happen. So I think it's really, sorry, I'm being eaten alive here. I'm getting ants on my feet.
I know.
Flies on me now. It's getting dark. So, I think it's a really interesting time in the war. I think we will know by the end of this year whether this war is going to go on for another 2 or 3 years. So that's my view.
Well, let me share a few things I saw in the north that I think our viewers need to know, because about 2 months ago, we were driving to Sloviansk, and I was telling people we began to see the road netting from north of Izum all the way to Sloviansk, and the teams out there reinforcing it, putting up netting around Sloviansk. Well, this time when we left Kharkiv to go over to our Sumy interviews, same thing. You start getting these long corridors, which I'll eventually publish some video in the next 24 hours, of these long spans of what we call filthy, basically nets across the road. And they were working on it nonstop. I don't know the measurements precisely, but they're covering several kilometers, a week to really reinforce those lines. Then I got to see a lot of the Shark's Tooth reinforcement trenches being built. They're definitely, when I say fresh, I mean at least
Dragon's
in the last
teeth,
year.
bald boy. Dragon's teeth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Dragon's teeth. That's what actually I was thinking that word. And they're really serious about this across that northern area in a way that's important that I saw in the east. Last part, which is going to be a segment I'll put together in the next 24 hours, which is why I brought it up and ties to you, is that when we were down south with around you guys, and then north, all these gas stations that they've been popping, where you can't go, you go next one after next one after next one between Dnipro and Mykolaiv, and they're just like, which one's still standing? Same thing in the north in Sumy. It became a pattern where I literally told the guys, I need to stop. I need to do a segment, a walk and talk on this one now, this one now, this one. And, so I did a calculation of how many per oblast. Like yours is the number one oblast with 55 stations destroyed significantly. They might be operative because what happens is the shops, they'll put a little secondary kiosk for some food, and they'll get the pumps running again. But they're all civilian. And that's the most important thing, is that, they're not dual purpose, other than you might get soldiers getting a hot dog, or they're filling up the normal civilian car. But the military level stuff is elsewhere. So that's what we saw on the road. Yeah.
That answers our question, Laura's question there. Yeah, we can still get, this is a world now where we're still getting power. I've got solar panels that keep my water hot. Battery banks, echo flows, inverters. So, hitting power stations is not having the same impact on quite a lot of people than it did, back in 2022, because people have adapted over 4 years. But it's still a concern if you start taking out power stations that we don't get any power at all. And, the Russians don't have any moral bar. They're hitting passenger trains at the moment, which I've been reporting on, and they are hitting, petrol stations. They don't have any moral bar. I mean, when you've seen 2 drones go into the city centre in the Dnipro, hitting shops, you know damn well this is they don't have a single moral bar. They're here to exterminate Ukrainians. So anybody sort of saying, we should make peace. Did he stop after Crimea? No, he came in again. And if we give him everything he wants now, he's only going to reorganize and come in again.
That's right. He didn't stop after Chechnya. He didn't stop after Georgia. No. He didn't stop after Crimea. He didn't stop after Bucha. He's not interested.
We need to make this as painful as possible for the Russians. And I think many Ukrainians know that. And that's where it is at the moment is becoming extremely painful for Putin, and we're seeing that in the media. We're seeing that through mill bloggers. We're seeing that through their recordings for online. I mean, I don't know how many times I've seen big lips, Botox babies from Russia talking about no gas. It's like it's bizarre. I mean, all you see is and then talking
now they
about
care
gas.
about the war.
Oh, my world's just collapsed. I can't get my
And now
Botox
they
because
care.
Wildberries is on fire. So yeah, I mean, we're seeing that despite stringent laws, despite stringent control methods by Putin to restrict access to internet, and they're still going on there. So it is kind of, it's a different world now. The swagger's gone into propaganda. I think we could take some positives for it now that this is what's
Wildberry
going
also,
on.
one thing with Wildberry that's important for our viewers to understand. So just a reminder, Wildberries is much in Russia like Amazon, meaning that different vendors use this outlet portal to sell a range of supplies of different things, beauty, normal civilian things. And it has been shown that other dual purpose items were going through it as well, which makes them legitimate targets.
Drone parts, weapons parts, clothes,
And
military clothes. Yeah.
that is why the Russians are hitting Nova Poshtas in their argument. Their argument
Yes.
is, and I can understand the argument, that, this will disrupt logistical supply lines. And to be honest, there are important logistical lines of things that we're literally just think of as logistics for life here. Your body spray stuff, your clothes, all the stuff that are logistical inroads into Ukraine are being hit. So one of the reports I'm working on is this tit for tat expansion into the gas lines, the gas items that are being hit in Russia, the um, material goods warehouses like Wildberries. Basically, are you you're gonna hit one of mine? Well, I'm gonna hit two of yours, okay? And Robert Brody is straight out saying what his plan is gonna do. We're gonna make it hurt. So the vendors in Wildberries started going to these and say, like, one took his life because essentially he had invested a certain amount of money into a business, does it on Wildberries, it's over, and before he could hear anything about no compensation from Wildberries saying, "We're not gonna pay anyone for what was lost," he took his life. You can judge me in whatever hell I'm gonna live in, but oh well.
Yeah.
You're a Russian, so you could have gone to Europe or something else. But their response was so flat-footed that now in the last few days, they're like, "Okay, we're gonna try some compensation," but it's not enough. The devastation to that side means now they're gonna go, "Well, now wait a minute, we're now paying the price." And that is what the objective is. Remember what Zelensky said, a 40-day influence campaign to stop your war.
Yeah,
And we're
yeah.
not even at
So you
40
just
days
have
yet.
to. Yeah. I mean, there's talks of coup. I mean, I don't like bringing it up because I've heard it for 4 years, but there is more verbal and more talks inside Russia about coups and about Putin's ratings deteriorated. So you've got to listen to that to a degree. My money's still on a Gorbachev. I think we'll have a 5-10 quid on that, sweet. My money's on a Gorbachev. What's your? How do you think it's going to end? I've got to end it. I'm getting eaten to bits here at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, so that's like good night. I mean, I don't really worry about the ending of it, part because I don't see Russians changing enough. And I'll say the same thing for Americans. No kings every few weeks isn't going to stop the dictator. You have to take action 24 hours a day. If you don't believe me, Shaun, this week, why don't you come up to Kyiv and we'll go to the protesters and we'll have them teach us about democracy and how to do things. So for everyone watching tonight, please get your subscription to Shaun's account if you can. Take a paid subscription so he is fully working in here. We are your journalists. We are your eyes on the ground.
Answer your questions.
Analysis types that are trying to pick apart what's happening in front of us to share with you. And likewise, if you could do that with Wiretap, we appreciate it nonetheless. You're why we're able to make appointments like I have today. We did 4 interviews at the museum. I have 2 more major interviews tomorrow, including Vladimir Zhimshikov and Mykola Melnik. And a lot of it is entirely because we have you guys taking care of that backline need by being paid subscribers. And if you want to go above and beyond that through PayPal or something to really be an investor in the news, go for it. Call us up. We'll make sure it's happening. Let me say this to you, Shaun, so we can go. Is I would actually much more prefer traveling around with you with like a rental car, and we go to like Nikopol, we go through Sumy again, and we really see this together. And because you and I would never clash on the road with each other, and you won't get me killed.
Crash or clash?
Clash or crash. Um, and so we
Don't say
like
that.
doing this
There's
work
always
with
a
you guys.
first time, to be
I
fair.
know, exactly. But we like doing this work for you guys. So thank you. Дякуємо за підтримки і your subscriptions.
Thank you, everybody.
And
We
we'll
got
see you
70
next time.
people on, so that's good. That's good.
Hoorah!
Thank you very much. Ooh-ah.
Talk to you soon.
I'm going to go back to
Slava-
mowing my lawn.
There you go. Slava Ukraini
Героям слава. See you later. Bye-bye.
і
Bye,
пиздець
everybody.
Російської Федерації.